Hey everyone, it's Lori at the Land of Color again. I wanted to pop in and make a video to answer a question that I got about an image that I posted on my Instagram account. This graphic is something that I made for a client who was struggling with different colors of white paint colors. She had tried several brands and she had spent over $200 on samples by the time she reached out to me, which I know is a common thing because a lot of people struggle with white. Um, white's very, um, it's kind of a mystery, and people think white is complicated, and white really is not that complicated at all. It's really simple when you look at it this way. So the first thing I did for her was I got control of all the chaos and I mapped out all of the colors of white that she had samples for onto the Color Strategist color wheel. This did a couple different things for her. First and foremost, of course, it showed what hue family each color of white belonged to, but I also included value and chroma. Value is about lightness and darkness. Chroma is about grayness. So you can actually look at these numbers and figure out and compare the colors of white based on grayness. Which one has the most gray? Which one is the least gray? So that's what all of those numbers are for over there. But the reason why I'm making the video is because I got an email with a question after someone saw that image on my Instagram account, and she said, this is probably a dumb question, but I really want to know. She wanted to know where the whites were on the color wheel. She understood that the little dot arrow things were indicating what hue family each color of white belonged to, and she understands that every color of white belongs to a hue family. And she had seen me post on the house forum a million times that you can find a white from every single color in the spectrum, every single hue family in the spectrum. So she understood all that, but she was just wondering where are the whites on the color wheel? And it's actually a really good question. And I've had similar questions before. Specifically, oh, that was my dog Bailey. Did you hear that? um, I've had that question before. She's not gonna let me talk. Every time I talk, she's gonna bark. Watch, I'll start again. Specifically about this diagram. It's called the XYZ chromaticity diagram. I can't talk now because I'm waiting for Bailey to bark. But it's the XYZ chromaticity diagram. Sometimes it's called the human gamut of color. And logically, it doesn't make sense because people look at this diagram, thanks Bailey, called the human gamut of color, and it only has saturated vivid colors in it, and people are like, well, how can this be the human gamut of color? Where are all of the lighter colors and the neutral colors and the grays? This is something that's very that's commonly misunderstood. This diagram is only a two-dimensional diagram of a three-dimensional color space. My color wheel, the Color Strategist color wheel, is a two-dimensional diagram of a three-dimensional space. The tints, tones, and shades are implied. The color wheel, the diagram, is just one slice from the middle of the color space. And here's a color space. I hope you can see it. I'm going to hold it up. This is called a kolormondo. It's really cool. It's called a puzzle. You can order it, and it fits together. And I'll try to pull one out. There's a slice of it pulled out. And as you can see, the hue parents are on the outer edge, and as you move in towards the center, let me get this put back down. I'm out of space. As you move in towards the center of the color space, that's where you find the muted colors, your near neutrals, and all the colors that you call gray. But I have a video to show you that will explain all of that better. So let's click over to that, and you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the video I was talking about, and as the colors cut away from the top and the bottom, you can see the center slice that I told you about, and it just looks like your typical color wheel, right? We have the saturated hue parents on the outside. As we move inward, there are the muted colors and then the near neutral colors, and these are called near neutral because they are the closest, the nearest to a true neutral gray, which is in the center. So that is how a color space is put together. That's the dimensions of a color space. And as I play the video, the colors will fill back in, and it will show you, it'll spin from the top to the bottom, and at the very top of the color space, that's where you're going to find your whites and your pastels. So that's where the whites live, to answer the question. And then as it spins back around, you can see at the bottom of the color space, that's where you find the darker colors and the shades. So the video is going to cut away starting from the outside inward, and again, this is where you find your muted colors, the grays, the near neutrals, and at the very center, let me see if I can get this to stop in just the right place, at the very center of a color space, it's called the central vertical axis. Perfect, I got it. And the central vertical axis is the grayscale. So at one end you have white, and at the other end you have black. So I'm going to go back to the very beginning so you can see the whole color sphere put back together. And that's a three-dimensional color space. And a color wheel, most color wheels anyway, are just a slice from the center. Okay, so now you understand that a color wheel, well, most color wheels, are just a slice from the middle of a three-dimensional color space like this kolormondo shows us. Wow, that's super dusty. I didn't know that was that dusty. Like you care that I have a dusty kolormondo. Anyway, so we understand the components of a three-dimensional color space, and that every color, including whites and grays, belongs to a hue family. Well, when you understand the dimensionality of a color space like that, you're able to deconstruct it and put it back together in different configurations to demonstrate and illustrate different color concepts. And that's what I did with this graphic right here. This is showing you a near neutral triad, is what it's technically called. And what I did was I pulled the near neutrals from the center of the color wheel that are normally near inwards towards true neutral gray, that neutral vertical axis. I pulled those to the outside of the color wheel and flipped it so the hue families were on the inside, just so it would be easier to see the color relationship you can construct using neutrals from the green-yellow hue family, blue-green hue family, and the red-purple hue family in this example. This is one of my favorite color combinations. And I have another example for you too. This one is called a tetrad, and this has a red from a neutral from the red hue family, green hue family, blue, green, and purple again. When you are making color schemes, creating color schemes for an interior or an exterior, it's usually best to stick to only 3 colors. 3 hue families, colors from only 3 hue families. In this graphic you can see I'm using neutrals from 4 hue families. And sometimes you're kind of stuck, especially on exteriors. You can get stuck with odd combinations of neutrals, odd combinations of colors on an exterior. And sometimes you have to get really creative and really kind of dig into the nuts and bolts of color relationships and what works together and what doesn't to solve those color conundrums, because lots of times interior and exterior you have fixed elements that you have to work with. And once you figure out what hue family those fixed elements belong to, then you're able to solve that color puzzle, solve that color conundrum. And if you get stuck, a color wheel is a good reference. If you're a color professional and you work with color on a regular basis, you probably don't whip out a color wheel in order to figure out color schemes. But people who don't have as much experience or don't have as much knowledge about color, a color wheel is really good for you as far as helping to illustrate and demonstrate which colors go together and which colors might not be so great together. But it's important to remember that a color wheel, color schemes and color relationships using a color wheel is not just about those vivid saturated hue parents, that it's really speaking to all 3 dimensions, all tints and tones of color. It includes all of the colors. You just have to know how to do it. You just have to understand it. So to answer the question I got about where do the colors of white live on a color wheel, they don't really live on a color wheel, they live in a color space, and the color wheel kind of directs you and guides you to the hue family that it belongs to. And that's all I have for you for this video. I hope that was helpful, and I hope you now understand a little bit better about two-dimensional graphics that show different color concepts like color wheels and a three-dimensional color space. So if you have any questions, just let me know. You can, leave questions here on the video, or you can send me an email. You can find me at thelandofcolor.com. I'm going to try to post more videos on a somewhat regular basis, so you might want to look below the video here and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And thanks for listening, you guys, and until next time, bye.